Let's talk more about the markets and what this hour's jobs report means for your money going forward. Joining us now, Omar Aguilar. He is the Chief Investment Officer of Passive Equity and Multi-Asset Strategies at Charles Schwab Investment Management. It's good to see you this morning. What do you make of the report? What do you think it means for the markets?
Hey, good morning. Well, you know, it's always good to see positive numbers, and it's always good to see that we're on the right path. Certainly, the uncertainty going into this morning was, quite remarkable. Where actually it was clear that nobody knew we could even have a chance to have negative numbers. So having the report where it is, I think the market is starting to digest where we're going. That being said, we still looking in that recovery of what it was a huge losses that we had at the beginning of this crisis. So going from over 4 million to shy of 2 million, it clearly just is slowing down the amount of jobs that get generated and get back. I do think that the most important thing in the long run has to do with the fact that, when we're recovering a lot of the temporary losses of jobs, and that's what these numbers represent today, we still need to figure out what goes ahead in the next few months to understand how many of those job losses, are permanent versus the ones that were temporary. And I think that will shape up more or less the duration of this crisis.
Do you think it's time to rotate yet away from high growth stocks into cyclical, more value stocks? I mean, this report suggests we're at least heading in the right direction on the employment and economic front. Is it too early?
Well, unfortunately, the decision to rotate and the decision to get into the full phase of recovery for the economy, it is going to be determined by the virus and the way that we contain the virus. We started this crisis as a health crisis with the virus, being the one that shocked everybody. And until we have a more clear path on how we're going to control and contain the virus, it is going to be very difficult for the market to rotate out into a very atypical, recovery from recession. If you think about it today, the majority of the sectors that are leading the way, they became, defensive, and they are continuing to drive a lot of their business on the virus situation. The market itself, it is clearly taking the headwind, the tailwinds associated with working on online to basically adapting to what those are, and the growth rates and earnings are basically expected to be as long as we stay in this situation. So it is kind of an interesting, path where we are, where we're not ready to rotate into traditional recovery form, mostly because we haven't had the final answer on how we're going to contain the virus.
So literally, you're saying you stay with this trade until you get a vaccine?
I wouldn't necessarily say that the vaccine is the answer. I think if you think about what the market and typical markets that we have seen, this is more typical of the recovery of a natural disaster. When you actually have a natural disaster that affects markets, for the most part, you take some time to start recovering. If that generates a recession, all of a sudden you're starting to see that rotation happening where cyclicals start to lead the way. You started to actually shift from growth to defensive into value. We don't have a solution to that path. And even though we may get a vaccine and a treatment, it's going to take some time for us to just being able to understand what the implications will be in the economic. The longer we wait for a vaccine or a treatment, the worse will be for that recovery. And again, just think about it. The disconnect between where the market is today and where the economic data that is trying to catch up is really just what the market expects to be the duration for us to get an answer. So if you think about the V-shaped recovery that the market seems to be having versus what the economy is, that is the length of the duration of what the potential length of a recovery for the health crisis might be.